Parents of Reddit, has anyone ever dated your child and changed them drastically? For example, the child used to be lazy, but post-relationship she was the exact opposite. My son is recently engaged to a woman who is wonderful. Before he met her, he was living with his father and stepmother, helping them run a thrift store and selling some of his own handmade furniture. He wasn't making much money and I wasn't sure he had any real plans for his future. He kept saying he didn't really want a real job. After he met his now fiancée, he decided he did want a real job. His fiancée actually helped him find a job with the company where her uncle worked. That's how he got a job in marine transportation, where he has thrived and been promoted 3 or 4 times in 18 or so months. Before he met her, he swore he'd never have children. She already has 2 adorably children and he's terrific with them. He and his fiancée have apparently decided to have more. Before he met her, he regularly drank too much, smoked pot on a regular basis, as well as regular cigarettes. Because of her, he got his job, and because of his job, he no longer smokes pot, not allowed, and has greatly reduced how many cigarettes he smokes each day, only allowed in certain areas of the boat. He has also cut back substantially on how much he drinks. Before he met her, he was terrible with money, mostly because he didn't have any, owing money on his student loans, in debt to various family members, always overdrawn at his bank. Again, because of her, he got a job, and now that he has a job, he pays his bills, he talks to and repays his creditors, and manages his money. I always believed he could be a productive person, but he always got in the way of his own success. Being with her has helped him see what he can do and what he is capable of. Kudos to him for finding a great lady, and congratulations to you for having a future daughter-in-law who'll respect you. You should tell her that. I'm sure she'd be exceedingly flattered. My friend went from straight D's to A's when he dated this one girl. I feel like there's a joke you could make about this. My ex's mother pulled me aside and told me I saved her daughter's life. She was a heroin addict on a horrible 1-800-273-8255 path. While dating me, a lot of things happened, leading her to get sober. It had a lot to do with me and how much she hurt me through her using. She's been clean for over 3 years now. No longer together, but I will love that girl until the end of my life. I think her family will do the same to you. I am of the opinion that once a person reaches a certain age, their experiences away from their parents change them the most. Kids don't grow up sitting on your couch, they grow up out having experiences in life. In my daughter's case, her first serious boyfriend and the subsequent breakup did change her. She has a much more mature attitude toward dating. She is much more careful about who she lets close, and far less apt to form crushes. In the past she had many male friends, and now she hardly has any. I think her bruised heart is telling her this stuff's real and she needs to protect herself. I will forever hold this comment dear to my heart, and I mean that in the most sincere, non-smart butt way possible. My ex of 2 years broke up with me recently. After that breakup, I changed drastically, and not all for the good. You literally described me. It's so scary. I can't get close to anyone, or I don't want to, it just doesn't work like it used to. Your first relationship and breakup changes you, I don't care who you are. That just hits home so much. My mother wrote my then girlfriend, now wife, a gosh darn thank you note. Not a parent, but my sister had a guy who drastically changed her. A lot of this can be attributed to the drags that he turned her on to, particularly meth, but the changes were dramatic. She went from being a normal young girl to literally insane. She would throw things, spit, cuss at my parents, etc. It was one of the hardest times for both me and my family. It wasn't until years later that she was able to shake him, and then shake the drags. She has been off of me for almost a year and a half now, and I am so thankful to have my sister back. Still, there are some lasting effects that you can see in her psyche, such as her inability to trust, and her quick temper. I'm obviously upset that she had to go through all that, but I couldn't be happier to have her back, for the most part. Smiley face, edit, whoa, I just wrote this as I was going out of internet service yesterday, and did not expect it to blow up like this at all. I'm gonna read through, and try to respond to as many people as I can. Thank you all for the kind words. To those who have lost someone, I am truly sorry, as I know how close I was to losing my sister on multiple occasions. Finally, to those who still have a loved one battling addict, do not give up hope. It took my sister 3 bouts with inpatient treatment for her to kick it. There is hope. Thanks again to you all, smiley face. You're lucky you have her back. I lost my sister to heroin a decade ago. She's still alive, but the person in her shell is not my sister. Good luck to your sister on staying clean. It's hard and it's good she seems to have you to support her. I like a happy ending. I hope she stays off forever, big smiley face. Here's one. I'm 20 now and I've been dating my first girlfriend since 16. When I met her I was a 300-pound basement-dwelling World of Warcraft obsessor. All I did was play WoW and eat before I met her. My grades were terrible. I went from honors in middle school, to repeating courses in HS. I graduated in the bottom 15%. I had it rough, divorced parents, poverty, medical issues, you name it. But then came along this cute little blonde girl who showed interest. Friends at first, we shared our lives and found out things were awfully similar. One day on the school bus of all places, I asked her out, and she said yes. The changes were slow at first, she pulled me away from WoW, then she got me more active. As time progressed the motivation came on its own. I started living a healthier life, lost 65 pounds, and turned around my grades. It doesn't stop there. I helped her too, since she was terribly depressed. My girlfriend had no sense of direction or confidence. Once I did, I showed her the way. 4 years later we both attend the same community college, both have a 3.5++ GPA, and hold down full-time jobs. That's my story. My SO's family has told me on several occasions how much he's changed since we started seeing each other, for the better. Before we dated he partied a lot, worked in a restaurant, generally led the college student life. I don't think they thought he was a bad guy or anything, he just wasn't focused. I was well out of college and had a Monday through Friday, so bedtime came a lot earlier for me than him, and our schedules didn't really sync up since he worked a lot of nights. It got old real fast but didn't turn out how you would have expected. Working nights and weekends meant we didn't have many opportunities for spending time together, and I obviously wasn't going to quit my job and go to work in a kitchen so we'd have the same schedules. So he graduated from school, finally, obsessed over his resume, looked for real jobs, and landed one. We moved in together, got a couple of dogs, planted a few vegetables, and worry about ridiculous things like mowing the grass. In short, he grew up. The thing that's funny to me is that I never tried to change him into a better version of himself. His progression came about because he wanted it. I don't like to think that I'm responsible for his maturation when people comment on it, but I am okay admitting that maybe I helped speed up the timeline. A couple years ago my daughter, 16, started dating a boy who told her that he was adopted. Okay. Then he said he was from another country, I think it was France, or something, and that he'd only lived in the States a couple years. I asked if he spoke another language and she said no. Warning bells. There were other little inconsistencies in the story, and I hadn't even met the boy yet. I did eventually meet him. He was different. Just things he said, and didn't add up. I didn't trust him. Every time I saw him, or heard about him, alarm bells went off. But it wasn't like I could tell her to stop dating him, that would just make things worse. Then my daughter started spending most nights in her room. I rarely saw her, rarely got her to say more than a few words. Her grades started slipping a bit. She was an honor roll student before this, not much, but enough to notice. She became argumentative, and secretive. Then one day my boyfriend and I went over to his house with my other 2 children to watch movies and hang out. The 16-year-old stayed home to finish her homework. I never had a problem with any of my children being home alone before, so I was okay with it. But something she texted me during the night set off warning bells and my boyfriend cut our night short. We walked in and found him half-clothed. I yelled her out, more for lying and being stupid about birth control than anything, and took him home. First time meeting his parents was me walking up to the door and saying, "Do you know where your son has been?" He had been ignoring their calls all night and they had been about to call the police. A week later his mom shows up to apologize. She goes through his list of lies: adoption, foreign country, refugee, etc. All lies. Then she says that he told his mom that the night was all my daughter's idea. That she begged him to come over, and she forced his clothes off. My daughter was big angry. But she loved him. So she went back to him, but she could only see him at school. Skip ahead a few months, my daughter is getting more depressed. More argumentative. She's trying anything to spend time with this boy, and I am doing all I can to discourage it, or supervise it without making it worse. At my wit's end, I snooped. I don't care what other people think about snooping, I was worried about my daughter. I was right to do so. I read through some texts and it mentioned her hurting. Worse, she cut because the boy she was apparently dating decided not to speak to her at all that day. She was so depressed that she cut and yelled at him, "See, I love you so much I cut myself for you." Things were fricked up. She was depressed, contemplating 1-800-273-8255, hurting, and I just don't know what else. I couldn't talk to her because she kept saying, "You always make it about you, I'm not you." But she was wrong. I'd been married to her father, an emotionally and mentally mean man who degraded me for 15 years to the point that I almost jumped off a building just to end the pain. I felt so worthless, and so useless. But I escaped. And now I was watching my little girl go through the same thing. Her father rejected her, just like my father rejected me, and this boy was giving her attention but only when it suited him, just like my husband did to me. It was the same pattern all over again. I honestly don't remember why they finally broke up. I think he broke up with her because she wouldn't put out. The boy followed her for a little while, but we managed to get that to end too. Then my daughter started going to a therapist. In front of the therapist I finally told my daughter what I had hidden from her and her siblings all those years. Their father hurt me, and I almost 18,2,738,255 because of it. During therapy she finally understood what I'd been trying to tell her, that the boy was a bad person and none of it was her fault. She's been going to therapy for almost a year, and she's starting to understand that she doesn't need a boy, or a father, to be happy and fulfilled. She's learning what I wish I'd learned all those years ago. She's also back to her old self, joking and happy, giving me hugs and talking to me. I trust her alone again. Too long didn't read. My daughter fell for the same trap I did, but she didn't try jumping off a building like I did. Edit. I also should say that the reason I mentioned my own experience with a very bad person is because my children grew up in that house watching it, and in their minds that was the way your daddy treated your mommy. It's the other side of the cycle of a horrible pain. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to Reddit Said It. Or don't. I'm not your boss. He ha.